Okay, so we are now recording, and just to reiterate for anyone who just joined, I'm going to launch a quick poll that we typically do during these meetups just to get an idea of who's on the call. So I'm going to launch the polls, and you can go to the bottom right hand of your screen and click on that icon and then click on polls to see the polls. So I'm going to launch a couple of them. So while we're waiting for everyone to join, if you can fill that out, that'd be great. And also, once you've done the poll, I'm going to add a question into the chat box. We kind of wanted to know where everyone's calling in from. So if you're comfortable with sharing your location, please go ahead and add your city, state, and country to the chat box once you've had a chance to take a look at the poll. Okay. Okay. Oh, all right. Okay. Not everyone's done the poll, so I'll just keep that open, and we can share the results in a little bit. But let's see here. So our agenda for today, we're going to do polls and hello. Hi, everyone, for a few minutes here. And then Mustafa is going to give us a pollination ecosystem update, just like what's new, what we've been working on for the last month. And then Nicholas is going to share with us some of the newer functionalities of the 3D viewer on the Pollination web app. And we're going to go back to Mustafa to do a demo of the Revit plugin. And then we'll leave about 20 minutes for questions at the end for anyone who has any custom questions. And before I give the screen back to Mustafa, I'm actually going to end the polls. And how do I share results? Can you guys see the results on your end? So we have about 13 or almost half of the participants are architects. We have a good mix of people who have been running simulations on pollination, but we also have a big group of people who have not run any simulations yet. And hey, awesome. A big chunk of people learned about this through LinkedIn, so that's really nice to know. Great. So Mustafa, should I just go ahead and circle through the slides, or do you want to share your screen?
Either works for me.
Okay, I'll continue sharing on my screen.
Sounds good. So hello, everyone, and most of you welcome back. For the ones who are new here, welcome the first time. Hope to see you again. I'm going to go through the slides quickly here just to give an update about what we have been working on, what are the new things that have been added. This opening slide, if you have seen it before, it has changed. So for anyone who haven't heard about Pollination and still is here, Pollination is an ecosystem of interconnected tools. Well, why we're doing this is to eliminate time-consuming steps of the process so we can get to the actionable data that you need efficiently and smoothly. Can we go to the next slide? So this ecosystem has different parts. We have 3 CAD plugins, as you should know. We have the Revit plugin, which we'll talk about a lot today to help with the BEAM to BEM translation. We have the Grasshopper plugin, where you get the most of flexibility for setting up and running parametric studies. And then we have the Rhino plugin, which is the place that we give you the most accessibility to edit your geometry, QA, QC, and do all the stuff. All these plugins are connected to cloud computing on Pollination, but that's not a required reason to use it. Then we have the recipes, which is the units of logic that are reusable and customizable. Then we have cloud computing on Pollination to run simulations faster. And finally, we have the web interface for result visualization, collaboration, and how they all tie together. So as we have presented before, this platform is not only a cloud-based, or this ecosystem is not only a cloud-based product, it's hybrid between cloud and desktop. And we are happy to show you that actually the local runs are now available and you can test it. What you see here is how the CAD plugins are working with our web interface and how the recipes and analytical model stays between the two to make it possible. So what we're trying to resolve is, again, just a reminder, it's not only to run simulations faster, it's the issue that we have for collaboration. The thing that you have to wait as for the model to be ready to run the study on the engineering side, and then the time with no feedback on the design side that people have to wait for something to happen to get the first result. And this opportunity missed on collaborating during this step of the design. This we can go to the next one. With Pollination now, this will change to having Pollination as the middleware between the two parties, or even more than two, the place that you basically have a unit of logic, which is the recipe, and the user can run the recipe using the CAD plugins or the web interface without having to go all the way back to the other person and without sending the whole model. So we are changing this to just sharing your data and making it possible to collaborate together smoothly. And there is one more, you can go on your vacation and people don't get upset. So what are the things that happened with Pollination Updates so far? One thing is we decided to add the link for developer version of the Rhino plugin to this course. So you can download the one that we officially released and it's more stable. But if you want to test the latest and the greatest, you can download the developer version from this course. It should be easy for you to find that post, and the link is down there. So if you download that developer version, you'll see now you can actually run if you go to the next slide, yes, you can now, like if you try to run a simulation from Rhino, before you only had the option to pollinate to run it on Pollination on cloud, but now there is an option to run locally. You can click that, and then you can use the local run setting to run the simulation locally. And if you go to the next slide, yes, when you want to load it, can we go back? In Rhino, when you want to load it, now you can see the first run is a run that comes on the cloud, and the second one is the one that I ran locally for this model. And if you have OpenStudio users on this call, this was an OpenStudio model. You can reuse your OpenStudio models inside a Rhino plugin smoothly, and just like do studies that are not possible to do as easy in OpenStudio. So this is an example for daylight simulation using an OSM file. So next, we added the same functionality to Grasshopper. So if you download the latest version, you see by default it runs it on cloud. You can right-click and then change it to run on your local machine. You can set the settings on CPU numbers and like working folders and all that. And if you pollinate now, instead of running it on cloud, it runs locally. The rest of the process is exactly the same. So when the simulation is done, the result visualization and everything is the same. So you can use the exact same script that you have to run the ones that doesn't take that long locally, or just use Pollination to run it on Pollination if you want to run it faster or you want to share it with more people. The other improvement is the UI. If you check the UI now, Construction Manager now has extra column with more information. You can go between metric and imperial for people who only know one. And this, by sorting, it makes it much easier to select the one that you want based on U value or R value or Solar-Heiken coefficient. We also improved the UI on the Rhino side itself. If you go to the next slide, now you can sort based on each column for the rooms. This is very useful to like easily like sort, for example, for a story and select the ones that you have in one story, or sort by name and being able to find the room quickly using the name. Okay, and we added at least two new commands to the Rhino plugin. One of them is PO, what was it? Check adjacencies, check geometry adjacency. The usage of this is to help you with finding those zones, rooms that are very close but don't necessarily match. It's similar to show edge command in Rhino. So now I can run this and I can find all these points that normally if you check the model, you cannot find it. Normally you see this after you run the simulation and something totally fails and you don't know why. So now you can quickly QA, QC your model before running simulation. We also added another command called PO validate, which you can use to validate your model and make sure everything in your model is as expected before running the simulation. Going to the next slide, on Revit plugin, we did major workflow and UI refactor. For most of you who haven't used the Revit plugin, refactor means nothing, but I'll talk about it more at the end of this call. You can see we added like enable disable button. We added edit room properties to Revit, and it looks exactly like Rhino. And then we started using Revit parameters for pollination parameters, so you can add it to your schedule and all those. I'll talk about this more after the call. And we started the online documentation. So if you go to docs.pollination.cloud, you're going to start seeing modeling best practices for Revit. There is also other sections for how to get started with the Revit plugin. And last but not least, we have an improved 3D viewer. You see one version before this version on production. We have a new one, which is currently on staging, that has a lot of great functionalities that Nicholas will go through them, so I'm not going to spend more time on that.
Yeah, hey
Thank
everyone. Yeah, thanks, Mustafa. Janki, if you could go to the next slide, and then I'll just.
Oh,
never
sure.
mind.
Yeah, why don't you share yours since you're going to do the demo? Yeah.
Okay.
So while we're waiting here, I think if you have any questions, you can type it in the comments, and we can get to them at the end of the call.
Yeah, so as Mustafa said, we're continuing to develop the 3D viewer, which is going to be a unified viewer for both previewing your HBJSON files on Pollination, and also for eventually or soon visualizing simulation results. This is enabled by VTK.js, which is a really great geometry and simulation results visualization library. And Honeybee VTK, which was developed by our very own Devang. And this is a really great set of tools that are going to allow you to create report-ready images from your browser. So soon you're going to be able to not only run the simulations on Pollination, but also visualize the results and start to create images and share images from the web app. So if you all are familiar with the current state of the 3D viewer, which we announced, I think, 2 weeks ago, now since then, we've improved layer-based controls, data visualization options, including all of our favorite Ladybug tools, color schemes, link sharing. So now you can share a link to a specific model, not only to the folder, and also improved 3D navigation, so it feels a lot more like Rhino. And we're planning on releasing all of these features very soon, so I want to show them to you now. Yeah, so as the first view when you all hop into the 3D viewer, it looks pretty similar from what it is now currently in production. We have a menu at the top that just gives you some quick controls for changing for changing the camera and view of your rendering. For instance, you can toggle perspective or orthographic view here. We also have just a little gimbal here to show you the view orientation and a legend. Finally, we have a more comprehensive menu here on the left that gives you some control over exactly how your model is going to be rendered in the browser. And this includes some new layer-based controls, as I was saying before. We have 3 tabs here: the Viewer tab, Model tab, and Shortcuts tab. I'm going to just kind of focus on the Model tab here because that's where the development has been focused recently. And it's going to be where you do most of your work if you want to create images using this viewer. So I just want to show you really quickly how we could go from this kind of default HBJSON type model with some results here. We can see now that we have some results showing up in our model, and turn this into just a little image that we might want to share with a client using these new layer-based controls. So you see we can select a range of layers, change their view properties. We can, if we want to make the windows a little blue, turn on some edges here, and start to get this looking like an image that we'd like to put into an InDesign report. Now, the most exciting thing is when we go down and actually start to take a look at one of our layers that contains data. So this is indicated by the little chart symbol here, and this represents the actual mesh that contains the simulation results here. So we can change our color scheme depending on what kind of simulation we've run. We can select different data sets depending on what the simulation the simulation that we actually that we ran on Pollination. And we can change the range of values here to match the to match our simulation criteria. So this tool will hopefully help you. Oh yeah, and then finally we can take a nice screenshot here and open that up. So this is ready for you to slip it into whatever InDesign document or presentation that you're creating. So we're looking forward to this tool being a really fully fledged way to take your simulation results, really close the loop and take the simulation results and create images from them for your clients and for your reports. Okay, I think that's it for me now.
Thanks, Nick. That was really great. So if you stop sharing, Mustafa, if you want to go back to the presentation.
Yeah, I can go to the presentation and start presenting the Revit plugin demo, but maybe it's a good time to ask if anyone has any questions so far about the topics. Okay, yes.
We do have a question. Oh,
one
go ahead.
question, can you also share the 3D viewer in a read-only mode? That's part of the plan. We don't have it right now, but I assume what you mean is a publish-like functionality. So you can publish it to the web and then send the link to somewhere. How are 3DM models converted to HBJSON? So you can use either of our plugins, the Rhino. If it's 3DM, you can use the Rhino plugin to do that. We can add functionalities to visualize 3DM files too to this viewer, but this is mostly built for analytical models. So you can use the Rhino plugin or Grasshopper plugin to get a 3DM file and convert them to HBJSON. Any other questions? I saw another question about when the Revit plugin will be released. I'll talk about that as part of the Revit plugin conversation. Okay. So if there is no other questions, I'll just go ahead to talk about the Revit plugin. So while or before I start the presentation, I want just to say we will have 2 questions when the presentation is over for the Revit plugin. We really want, there are 2 items that we have questions about how we have to resolve it. And we want to get your feedback on, John Key will share a form after, or like once this is done, so you can answer. And we can have a conversation. I mean, we have a little bit like too many people for having a lot of conversation maybe, but it's still like, I think if we have time, we can raise hand and talk about this. So it's not only just to show you what we have done, it's also to ask you, where do you think we should go from here? Because there are so many things that we can make better when it comes to the Revit plugin. So this is the plugin. When you install it, it will add a Pollination tab here on the top. You see, you get these menus here. And one of the main changes that we made, if you have seen the older one, is now when you go and select a room, we decided that pollination information to be part of the room data, as you can see, as parameters. And we know not everyone likes this because this is extra information. So the first thing is now you can enable or disable the plugin. So if you have a model that you don't want to have this extra parameters, now that I disabled it, you see this is gone. You should keep in mind that if you have a model, you set all the properties, and then you disable it, you're going to lose all the data. But it also helps you if there is a model that you don't want to have these extra keys or parameters, you have the option to do that. So I just enable it back again, up to here. So the tab, the model itself, so there's this plugin on and off. You have settings. Settings is the place that you can set up all your construction, material construction set. And if I click on one of them, you'll see this is exactly the same as what we are using in Rhino. The Revit plugin is usually a little bit behind. So what you get in Rhino, we will update it in the Revit plugin shortly after. But the best thing about this is now if you have done something with Rhino, or if you know the Rhino plugin, you already know the Revit plugin. So this is basically the same UI. You can set everything here. I can go here and change the construction set, the default construction set, let's say, and say OK. So now you'll see this one room here is default construction set. It has changing parameters. This means you can add all this stuff to your Revit schedules and do all the Revit things that you can do with Revit, with our plugin. Then after that, we have the model section. So model section has 3 basically options or icons here. One is for adding sensor grids. The other one is for editing room properties, which will only be active if you select the room. So if I select this room, you can go to edit room properties, as I did, and then change edit room properties for that room. And then last but not least, you have export model that allows you to export the model. One thing to mention is you can select multiple rooms and change the properties if you want. So I can do this, go to Pollination, edit room properties, I don't know, change program type to something like generic office. Then press OK. And now this should go in, and if I select this guy, this should be generic office, and this room also, whenever I can select it, should be generic office program. So I can do this like one by one, or I can do multiple rooms in a go. Then we have export model, which is the part that I will spend most of the time showing. And we have this section for running simulation and just connecting to Pollination for cloud computing. I'm not going to talk about this a lot. It's very similar to how you do it from Grasshopper or Rhino. But during this call, I want just to focus on the export process and the modeling process. So let's go here to export. When you go to export, there is a tab for geometry, first step, and you have user data. I will talk about user data if you have time. But for now, for geometry, the options that you have is to select the type of export that you want. We have HBJSON, DFJSON, and GBXML. So I go with HBJSON. Then you can select which phase do you want to export the model for. And then you can select which level do you want to be exported. The reason we put this here is we imagine there will be a lot of back and forth for fixing the model. So it makes sense to just be able to say, OK, let me export level 1, check the model, try to fix it, when it's done, do level 2, level 3. We are hoping to get to a point that you can do export and everything gets exported. But you know, this is Revit. And let's be realistic, it takes time to fix the model. And the model is not necessarily modeled for energy simulation, it's modeled for design documentation. So it takes a little bit of change and going back and forth between the two. We have done a lot of good parsing of the model, but we can only parse it if you prepare it the right way. And by the right way, I'll talk about this a little bit more, you need to have the room geometry being there correctly, right? The next step for that is to say to the exporter, which one of these are the glazing that you want to be exported as glazing. So for this one, you need to know your model. So you don't want to select the wall, but this is glazing. I think this is all the glazing that we have in this model. And by that, when I go next, it starts basically parsing those rooms one by one that I selected. And you can see only level 1 came here because I selected level 1. I didn't get the room from the other levels. The ones that I have already set are already set here. If there is something that I'm missing and I want to set, I can right click here and edit properties. And I can set it here as needed if there is something that's missing. You can, I believe you can also do this because there are Revit parameters. You can do it from Revit schedules. I saw somebody ask, but don't believe me when I say something about Revit, at least for now. So one of the other things that's important. So this none is okay because it will be replaced with default value. Or no, we're not going to go through that. But this is the important one. So if you see this exclamation mark here, it means your room has an issue, right? So for this ones, they're all the rooms that are not placed. There is area of 0. To make it easy for you, we have the option. I mean, all of them are the same thing here. I can check one by one. But what I can do is I can select them basically, right-click and delete. And now, just like the rooms that didn't have the area of 0, they're all deleted. One thing here is context shade. By default, it selects all the plants. If you want to add more, you can click here and then select faces. I'm not going to do it for now. And then when you have this, you can basically select all these rooms. And again, this is important. You have to select them because, as I said, we see this process of going back and forth. So we even allow you to export only one room, you know, to check how it's exported, what are the issues. You can come back and fix it if you need it. So I just select all this and then export. And then I had another first floor, so I just overwrite this for HPJSON, which I can go and visualize in Rhino. We do not have a preview functionality for the Revit plugin right now, but we're adding that, so you don't have to go to Rhino to visualize this and coming back and forth. I know this is not ideal, but again, like this is WIP, so wait for us, like a lot of it to get this to work. So this is my model. I go to downloads and Honeybee model. Oh, and this is the result from the old study. For some reason, it's still on. Let me, no. Yes. This is interesting. I don't know how to get rid of it. What do I hear?
From GH, maybe, from Grasshopper.
Oh, what? Let me. Here we go. Thank you, Antonella. I had GH open. So here we go. And this is the first floor that I exported, right? From Revit. And you can see like these things are exported correctly, like the windows, you get even the frames where you have it, and doors that are selected are there. And because the resources are shared, so whatever I set, I think for this room, I set it up to generic office. You can see this came as generic office program. For kitchen, I changed the construction to default. You see the construction comes to default, and you know this UI already. So basically, you can share resources between the two. Again, you don't have to go to Rhino. That's the viewer that we have right now. So that's the way to check your model if it's exported correctly. So we have two very common issues when we get models that we see. Right now, this one, we cleaned it up, so the things are clean and everything works. But one of the things that we see when you go in sections is usually the room volumes, instead of really being like calculated correctly, they're just left 8 feet from the floor, right? They're just left halfway there. No one really cares as much about the room volume, because when you're in 2D plan, you don't see that. And that's not why people put rooms in Revit most of the time. But for our export, we really need that. So we export this room volume. If the room volume is not really extended like that, so if I go here and rooms in areas, and for example, turn off this, and and if this was not all the way there, which is the thing that we see, then if you try to export this now, let me try to export this, you'll see what happens. So if I try to export this pollination export model, this time I'm going to export level 2. This. Next. So you'll see now I should get another new warning here. And this one says face has no surface type assigned, because the face on the top, we don't know what's the type. And it tells you likely the room doesn't extend to floor roof above. And you see the same error here. You can actually right click here and select it in the view, so you can see which one we are talking about quickly in your model, especially if you have a larger model. So this has been one of the questions that we have been asking ourselves. Is it something that the Revit plugin should fix? Is it something that the initial auditor, who is usually an architect, should take care of and fix? Is it something that the one who takes care of energy, daylight modeling, the engineer, the consultant should fix? This is something that we don't know. And if we have to fix it, should we just do you think it should be an automated process? Because the chances, with automated process, we probably can fix 90% of the stuff, but 10% will go very wrong based on the quality of your Revit model, right? Should it be kind of semi-automated? You should have tools that helps you during this process to get your model fixed. This is one question. The other thing that we have seen is models like this. You get aperture which are extremely detailed, coming from the company itself probably. And then the result is when you export them, so you can see here, these are the Revit standard doors and floors, which looks very similar. These are not the standard one. This is the detailed one that I just showed here. And this is what happens when you export them. So you get these kind of smaller issues here. So the question that we have is it acceptable to ask users to say, hey, if this model, you have this Revit model, just edit these families to be simplified or be ready for this purpose of building simulation? Or is it something that our plugin should be able to simplify, because this is something that people want to keep in Revit the way it is? That's, I think, our second question. With that, this will be the end of the Pollination Revit demo, and I think we can open up for questions and feedback. And yep, sure, I think we have several questions. Junkie, do you want to run this?
Yeah, so I just added the link to the form. So if you don't have a question, you can totally take a look at the forum, give us your feedback. And if you do have questions, you can either put them in the chat box or you can raise your hand, as a couple of people have done. I'll go with, I'm sorry if I butcher this, Javeria. Did I say that correctly? Do you want to just unmute yourself? There you go.
Hi, everyone. My name is Javeria. I'm a PhD student at Ryerson University in Toronto. I have a very basic question. I've just recently got to know about the pollination plugin. I know Ladybug. I've been using it to simulate solar radiation. I'm trying to achieve two objectives, and I was wondering if I could do both of them on pollination. So I want to find the energy consumption of a neighborhood that consists of varying types of buildings. And I want to see how developing a building, a high-rise building within that neighborhood could impact the energy consumption of the whole neighborhood. So is that possible to do on pollination, as just one place to do it?
So when you say, is that possible to do on pollination, you mean which part of it? So you can do all the model preparation and everything inside Rhino. Okay. You're using Ladybug tools, Rhino Grasshopper. Yeah. If you mean, can you run that simulation? Yes, if there is a recipe for that, you can run it.
Right.
And this is energy simulation. Yes, for energy simulation in urban scale, you can either use Dragonfly recipes or
Right.
use Honeybee recipes.
Right. And then developing a high-rise building that could impact the solar radiation exposure on building surfaces in that neighborhood, would that also be possible to do?
Yes, that's
Simultaneously?
also a recipe that we already have. Yes, for radiation, so the recipe is there. Just so you know, I think we have an issue with form permission,
Okay.
which I think, Janke, did you fix that? Not yet?
I'm checking into it. I'm not sure what's going on with it, but I'll
Okay,
try it again.
that's a second to fix it. I stop my presenting here.
Yeah. So let me try this one more time. And so if Zaveria, your question was answered, we do have someone else who raised their hands. Vittorio, do you want to
Hi,
go
hello.
ahead? Yeah, thanks.
I introduce myself. I'm a BIM and Design System Coordinator for Foster & Partners in London. About your question about simplifying the model, I think it's super important because a BIM model is always ongoing. Means that if you are in DD, if you are in concept stage, you have a different LOD and you have a lot of optioneering. So having the possibility of simplify the model for the analysis to me is super important. And the second thing is about the checking process. Yes, would be nice rather than to have an add-in that simplify the model. Maybe would be nice to have a checking process, an add-in to check things because you can learn by the app. So it means that you don't run your app and it does everything for you, but you can learn why things have been done in a certain way and what you should be modified to make the model better. And sometimes this is the most, this is the problem that I found in models, that you have people that run the script, run the ad, job done, that's it. Why? And they don't understand why, and so they can't learn from the design. So to me, this is key. It's not just an app; it's a tool to understand better design and to develop things further. Just to give you my feedback about your questions.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I agree.
Thanks.
The song should be working now. I removed the restriction.
Thanks, Mustafa. I'm not sure what was going on with that. Usually it works, but thank you. Filippo has a question, and it involves the envelope properties. So he's asking, can you model all of the parameters for an envelope in Revit, and can the Pollination plugin export that directly from the assembly?
So in the Revit plugin, you won't have access to every single face properties, but you can use construction set to set every detail for the envelope if that's what you mean. So if you have a room, if you set the exterior wall properties, that will be exported as the properties for the envelope. But you have to use construction set. And you can use you can have custom construction sets if that's the question.
Okay. Filippo,
Yes.
did that answer your question, or do you need more?
Yeah, I guess so, because I was wondering about the customization of envelope properties, but I'm a bit of a freak because I work on historical buildings, so Mustafa knows that I have a hell of different problems from.
Yes. So you can just add a new, or have a custom one that will be loaded. Mingo just added that to the Rhino plugin like 2 days ago. We will add it to Revit. And you can have your custom construction set, and everything will be loaded here as custom construction set to Revit, which will be exported through your HB.json file.
Okay, so basically, if I understood well, you have an object with a name in Revit, and then you model a construction set in the middleware that is capable of telling to Pollination that that object with that name in Revit has that specific properties and whatsoever.
Sure. So let's think about. So okay, there are two different things. Is it if we don't have? Okay, if you have time, I can show you.
We have time.
Two different things here. So one is It's let's say you have this, and you have 3 exterior walls here, right? And we assume all these exterior walls are the same. If this is the case, then the best way to do that is to develop a construction set and change the construction set for this room to be to what you need, right? So instead of default construction set, it can be your construction set. I don't have, like, I'm just selecting something else to show the concept.
Were you hoping to share your screen?
Oh,
Because you're
I'm
not.
sorry. Oh. Here we go. So sorry. So I'm just saying this room, it has 3 envelopes, right? And they are the same. So if you have a case like this, what you can do, you can basically say they're all the same. So I can change the construction set for this room. And because they're all exterior wall, whatever construction set I have in my exterior wall will be assigned to those as the construction set, right? So this is one way. There might be cases that the construction of this exterior wall is different from the other one. And that's the place that you can actually add additional parameters here to Revit object that you have. And this is the place, the one that I didn't talk about, but you can extract information that's not included. For example, here, I add something to comments. I don't add something new. I just say, I don't know, case 1, right? So now this case 1 is like for this room, I add a comment to case 1. It can be any other parameters. But when I go to exporting process, export model, this one is in level 1. So let me select level 1. I have 2 levels for level 1. I do next. Oops, I forgot. So when I export here, I go to user data. And in user data, I can say for room, include comments. And you see this list is the list of parameters that are available for room objects. So you can use Revit under manage and then create your own parameters, whatever you want, and it will show up here. And when I do this and I export this model, let's call it first floor 1, and I save it. I already did. Did I save? Oh, I didn't select anything. I'm sorry. Export first floor. Yeah, that's why it wasn't exported. I didn't select anything. Save. Let's go here. Let's go and open this new one that I exported. So now here, if you check this one, this comment has been exported. I don't know if you can see it, it's big enough. But now you can see in comments, I have case 1, which means you can have a script in Rhino, in Grasshopper, or in Python simply to take this data and make the changes that you need to the model. This is as much as you can basically customize the process from Revit right now.
Okay, on that note, Mustafa, there's a question, like, can it be automated through Dynamo, since that wasn't something that you mentioned, like applying properties, or is it only supported through Pollination Revit plugin?
Yes, I mean, like these parameters are like Revit parameters. You can just add it with Dynamo. You can add it manually. It doesn't matter. As long as it's a Revit parameter, so I can add project parameter, right, and then add it here and add them to the rooms, and or whatever. Like you can see, we have rooms, curtain walls, and all those. So I can add it here and say, I don't know, Plenum, and I'm probably Plenum.
Yeah, Sridharan, it was a question from Sridharan. So if this isn't answering your question, just feel free to unmute yourself.
Okay.
Hey, Mustafa, this is Sridharan. This is awesome, by the way. I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to check with you if, I did see that you used the Revit plugin to apply construction sets and all that. I wanted to know if, if rooms can be automatically created if it doesn't exist, and then the construction sets can be applied based on the properties of the room names or something like that, right?
Yes.
In Dynamo.
In Dynamo. So we do not have anything in Dynamo right now, but because this is all written in Python, right? We have all the Ladybug tools core libraries in Python. After you save this HB.json file, you can basically read them using Honeybee library and do all the stuff that we do in Dynamo. This is really very similar to what we do in Grasshopper. You should be able to copy paste most of the code, but we don't have any Dynamo plugin for it, or Dynamo package as they call it. You have to develop it yourself. It's possible, but we haven't done it.
Yeah, because why I was asking this, since you have all the information stored as a parameter, so can I write to those parameters was my question. Like, can I create a construction set and then go ahead and automate applying those construction set to multiple rooms, is what I was getting at.
Yeah, I think you should be able to, but we should double check. Yes, again, what if I understand you correctly,
sure.
And that's so if you go and select here, because it's a parameter, right? I don't know if it's read only. That's why I wasn't sure. Like the reason, because this is read only, I don't know if you can write that from inside Dynamo. But if you post this on Discord, and we can check with Conrad, I think that's a great idea. So you can basically automate this stuff from Dynamo without any needs for us to develop it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
That should be possible. No worries.
Okay. So Riza has her hand raised and she wants to ask a question. You can go ahead, Riza, if you're still on.
Hi. Hi, Mustafa.
Hello.
Great work. So I had a question. So for our processes, we often have to process maybe not the cleanest model from an architecture firm, regardless, or whether it be from like a certain phase. How do you like if I were to get a model with a maldeformed facade, how does that affect the workflow? Like if there's like a little tiny skinny panel, will that like make the energy model or export not that good? Or would I have to do pre-processing on it before exporting it?
So I would say, like, we have some crazy models that we have tested it on. As long as the panel is placed on the wall correctly, that shouldn't be a problem. And the room is bounded. That shouldn't be a problem. We should be able to resolve it. But again, like, we have to get that case by case.
Okay.
So our goal is cases like that to be handled with our plugin, so you don't have to clean it.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
I think that room bounding property becomes really important with that, right, Mustafa?
Yeah.
Like if you have multiple walls with panels on them, you just have to make sure that like if the panel is not actually room binding and it's kind of like decorative or something, there's just a way to identify a room because that's what gets exported and that's defined by that room bounding property that's assigned to the wall.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So we have another question here that says, if the Revit model is updated upstream by designer, can we merge existing data with new model? Yes, you can do it. And the best way to do it right now is to do it from the Rhino plugin. So I have the first floor. Let's say like the design changes here and we get some stuff coming on level 2, which I haven't exported. I use this as a case. So what I can do, or what you can do, is to come here, instead of exporting the whole model, you can just export what has been updated, right? So this, not this. Level 2. Go next. Oh, I know I messed up this, guys. So I just export a couple of them because I don't want to go fix the room during this. So let's say these are the newly updated stuff that we have. You can export this as, call it new changes. And what I can do, I can go here and import. Instead of opening a new file, I can go to downloads and then new changes, open, and this will be imported. So, and I duplicated my plants here, which I can remove. Self-dupe and delete. But now you can see, like, I could keep everything that I had before and I can add the new ones. What if the same room is changing? So if the same room is changing, what you can do right now, you have to delete it from Rhino before importing the stuff that you have. But what I can do now, I can save this as HB.json, and that will give you the new Honeybee JSON that has all the, the old information and the new one. So as simple as this. And you can, again, like do all this stuff with Python itself, but the easiest interface that we have to do it, if you need a GUI, is the Rhino plugin.
Great.
Any?
Yeah, there is one question. So Assis had asked, can Revit recognize a zone to be a basement below ground automatically?
Oh, Revit automatically. I don't know. I don't think so. We have to check. Yeah, good question.
Okay. And then the last question was, I think Chris Crossley asked this, but it might be answered with regards to, can you only have one exterior wall type? And the answer to that is no, you can have multiple, but Mustafa, it's just room-based, right?
Right, it's in a level of a room. You can have several construction sets, and each construction set can have its own properties for exterior wall. I mean, it might be a little bit confusing for people who don't know what's construction set, but if you search for construction set for Open Studio, I think that should give you a better idea. I don't think we have time for me to go to a construction set.
Gotcha. And that's also something we can totally add to our user manual.
Yes.
And Chris is saying that makes sense. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, and it looks like we have one more question that just came in. Is there a way to for the export interface to identify what's been previously exported?
Yeah, this came up like at least 3 times this week. Is it possible? Yes, because we have the ID of the rooms, right? So we can run a diff between the old HBJSON, new HBJSON, between 2 different Honeybee model. We can do that. Is this something that we have implemented? No. Because of the level of complexity that it brings up, I don't think we want to do it now, unless it's something that so many people really need and they see it's really helpful for their processes. Then we can consider doing that. But it's a very, very valid question. I see why it comes up frequently.
Okay. Any last questions? I think, Mustafa, one of the questions, Trevor had to leave, but is when is the Revit plugin going to be available?
Sorry. So,
that's okay.
So we have started sharing the Revit plugin like privately on private message with a group of people who we knew are interested in the Revit plugin. If we haven't shared with you and you're interested, let me know. Send me an email. I'll share it with you. The reason we haven't shared it publicly is, I mean, the main reason is we saw some installation issues with the MSI file. We still haven't had the chance to resolve it, to understand why it's happening. So I was worried that we share it with larger audience and then we get like 50, oh, we can't install it, what to do? So on case by case, we are trying to resolve the problem. It seems there are network problems with some offices machines that blocks the MSI and it doesn't work, but that's something on us to figure out. If you want to test it now, and I will send a message to Trevor, we can share the plugin with you. We feel comfortable to share it as long as you don't share it with other people and use it internally. Yep, until we get this installation issue fully resolved, and then we'll put it out there for more people to test.
Okay.
Do we have any conclusion on the questions that we asked?
Yeah, I was just going to check that, and we have about 7 responses, and I will share my screen so we can see them. There you go. All right. So we've had 7 responses to the room volume and highly detailed families. Overwhelmingly, people are looking for a hybrid approach to say, like, automating what can be automated, but also prompting users to check the geometry before it goes out. I think that makes sense. We did have a couple of people who wanted it fully automated. Sorry, just 1 of the 6. And then the highly detailed family.
So we have 49 people on the call, only 7 people
I can
That is
share
so
it again. And I
I
think
think we
we
can send
will,
an email afterwards, but I think this is
yeah.
an important decision for us. So please get involved and let us know. There should be permission for everyone to vote now. If you checked before and it wasn't working, now it should be permitted for everyone. But thank you for, and I think this pattern makes a lot of sense to me, I suppose.
Yeah.
Very helpful.
Okay. We'll also share this in our newsletter. So if it wasn't working and you didn't get a chance to today, we're going to continue just try to get some feedback on this so that we can chart a path forward. Okay. Well, if there are no other questions, I'm going to stop recording here. And thank you very much, everyone.